AOC did a 20-minute hit. It was really good. We're going to get to it right now. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez joins ABC. Asked about her political future, she says anything is possible.
Like in New York, you had the candidates that were endorsed by Mayor Mamdani, two of whom were challenging sitting members of Congress, powerful members of Congress, Democrats. And you decided to sit that one out. Is that part of wanting to work with your colleagues that are in the House? I mean, what's the...
Yeah, I think we're all in different, politics is also a workplace, and we're all in different positions to that. I endorsed, for example, in New York, on the state level, I endorsed a slate of challengers to incumbents in the Assembly. And in the Senate,
it was a cross endorsement. Zoran couldn't openly go out and stick his neck out and risk political capital in the New York State legislature. And AOC, much like many others, could not go out and endorse against incumbent Democrats. So they did a cross promotional slate. It was smart. I think that in the next cycle, we won't have to be as careful, right? We won't have to be as timid. We will be able to make more bold moves. All I'm going to say is this. There's an attitude of how popular this movement is and how much social and political capital exists for this movement outside here in this community versus the internal calculation that elected representatives are making. You're coping? I'm not. I'm just explaining to you exactly what it is. I'm telling you exactly what it is. I'm telling you exactly what's going on. There is a strategy to what's going on that is a little bit different from DSA. All I'm saying is there are varying degrees of bandwidth and allowance for different figures in different places. Elected representatives in the House of Representatives have a different allowance, at least from their own personal calculation, than the mayor of New York has a different allowance from his own personal calculation to someone who is outside of the political arena and their calculation. The calculus is always different. I get to do whatever I want to do. I get to be as bold as I want to be. I get to push the boundaries to the best of my ability in ways that an elected representative cannot. And what's frustrating is that a lot of people don't understand that this is a broad coalition. Same with DSA. DSA is an organization, is a political organization outside of the Democratic Party, and they get to be as bold as they want to in ways that Democratic electeds would shudder to get on board with. And the more DSA grows in its power and its influence, and a big part of that is coming from elected representatives that are DSA aligned or DSA affiliated or DSA endorsed or even DSA cadre candidates that win these elections, the more DSA's power grows. And the more DSA's power grows, the more influence capabilities DSA has in terms of adding pressure to establishment Democrats and having a say in the National Democratic Party's platform. This is simply put the most reductive but broadest theory of change. And I think because change, especially through the political arena, takes an unbelievably long amount of time, most people don't even see those changes and those shifts happening and basically take it for granted when they do happen. One example I will give you is where DSA was and where the American political calculation was in 2016 as far as socialism goes versus where it is now in only a decade. People like myself didn't exist in 2016, although I was still doing I didn't have a platform. There were no robust left media outlets out there that had competitive sizes in audiences to mainstream outlets. DSA itself was numbering in the 10,000s, not the 120,000. AOC was a barista in 2016. Do you understand? AOC was a barista in 2016, not a multiple term incumbent Democratic representative and one of the most popular figures in American politics. So these changes happen over a long period of time. And a lot of people come into it at some point in the movement and just take those changes for granted. They think, of course, this was always the case. That's the issue.
And I don't work in state government, which gives me a greater freedom to be able to do that and to assess it. And I'm very grateful, that we now have a progressive movement that is in large enough numbers that it used to be that you could fit 5 people in a closet, and that was the caucus. And now We've grown into quite a
She's right.
successful
And
movement.
she's speaking to that change as well. She's speaking to that seismic shift and how it wasn't designed overnight. It took a decade of work. And there will always be newcomers, which we welcome, by the way, with open arms, but there will always be newcomers who say, well, this changed. Look at where we're at. This didn't happen overnight. There were a sequence of victories and a sequence of defeats. We didn't arrive here like that.
These races ultimately are local, and all politics are local. My understanding is that that Francesca Hong has made clear her present stances to her electorate.
Yeah, she's moved away from a lot of that.
Right, she's moved away from it. And I have a local city councilman that has this saying, woke one was crazy.
Woke one was crazy.
And I think that what's important is that we have to assess what
was it? I mean, did the movement go too
now.
far with some of those positions? I mean, you briefly supported the idea of defunding the police.
Well, I think that during this time and especially during COVID, there was a huge opening of the Overton window. We were shut down. There was some of the highest unemployment rates that we have seen because of those shutdowns.
Yeah.
And I think that the doors were really open in trying to entertain any and every policy that was going to get us to a better place. And I actually think that the discussions that were had in that time were quite fruitful. I think that when we talk about crime today, it's fundamentally different than the way that we talked about crime in bringing crime down, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that we all share in the goals of having as low a crime rate as possible. I think that, during lockdown, of course, rhetoric in that time is not rhetoric that we would use today. And I'm grateful that these candidates have the opportunity to present who they are to their electorate and what they're campaigning on in this moment.
I think that her response to this was also not as dismissive as one would expect from AOC. Now, of course, AOC, so people are going to say oh, she botched this or whatever. But I think she did a pretty good job of saying look, it was an environment of heightened tension. And there were some people who were looking for different ideals and looking for different solutions, sometimes solutions that could be considered radical. Of course, people who are invested in police abolition are going to literally say that's not a radical solution. You for dismissing it. But I think that was a pretty solid response overall, because she doesn't even close the door entirely on dismissing people in our ranks. It's not dissimilar to my position overall as well, where I say look, I'm not a police abolitionist. I'm not a prison abolitionist, but I feel closer to that side of the political spectrum than I do, especially given where we're at currently with our understanding, the average American's understanding with crime and punishment, the draconian measures that we advocate for all the goddamn time, and the allowance that we give the police force to be as violent and as ruthless as they want to with no accountability whatsoever. When I think about it, it's that's why my argument always is look, I think this is a broad tent regardless. It's a broad movement regardless. There's going to be some disagreements overall, but the reality of the matter is the average position, the normative position on policing and prisons in this country have to dramatically shift to the left position so that we can reduce recidivism in this country, so that we can actually focus on rehabilitation rather than incarceration to ensure that people that have done crimes can actually reintegrate into society in more successful ways. Other countries have actually paved the path forward in much more meaningful, much more consequential ways, and we just choose to avoid that reality. We're so stunted in our vision. Same with defund the police, abolish the police. For many, there are very different attitudes on what must be done.
By the way, just a quick definitional thing. What, in your mind, is the difference between socialism and communism?
I think, to me, the fundamental differences, there's many.
Yeah.
One prevailing one is democracy. And I believe that democratic socialists are fundamentally pro-democracy. And we believe in the ballot box. We believe in respecting the outcomes of elections and governing democratically and ensuring that...
Look, there's no defending communism in the mainstream, and this is the democratic socialist opinion broadly. So she's channeling the DSA line here, not just the old DSA line, but just even the current DSA line overall, regardless of the fact that there are many communists within the democratic socialists of America. How would you answer this position? Well, I'm not an elected representative. representative with ambitions of higher office. I have answered this question many times over. What do you say to people who call you a communist? I say, I don't call myself a communist, but I would never oppose that framing. I don't think the understanding of communism in America is correct. Communism is an end goal of a classless, moneyless, stateless society. It's an evolution from our current understanding of the world. Do you feel like that's a bad way to live? Do you feel like that's a bad mode of existence? I certainly don't think so. How we'll get there or how we'll achieve it, I do not know. But I don't think that's a bad end state. I don't think that's a bad evolution. It's Star Trek. It's the Star Trek timeline. Americans think communism is USSR, Eastern Bloc, repression, gulags, the Gulag Archipelago. Look at the American understanding of, in the Western understanding broadly, due to the Cold War, due to the propaganda, due to Red Scare propaganda, is unbelievably terrifying. It's like very right-wing, very reactionary. The reality of the matter is, of course, an elected representative in the United States of America currently is probably going to shy away from this moniker overall and not waste any bandwidth trying to explain away what it means, especially because they might organically feel the same way about it.
And I think that that's at its core what we're about.
Are you still a member of Democratic Socialists of America?
Of the New York City chapter.
The New York City chapter, not the national.
No.
And what's the difference?
So every DSA chapter is formed locally.
Yeah.
And so the New York City DSA chapter, those are...
I'm not sure what you meant by that. Yeah. I mean, look, technically, DSA member is a part of DSA. There's definitely a little bit of friction with national versus locals and with New York City DSA in general. But, we hold the line. We hold it together. The national too far left to be generally palatable? No, I don't think the national DSA is too far left to be generally palatable. But I do think that the national platform comes from the national convention where everybody goes and votes on what the DSA's program, what the DSA's platform is going to be. I do not oppose it at all. I'm in favor of it, even if I have disagreements. At the end of the day, look, I'm not even a DSA member, right? I'm an outsider. So I'm being very careful with what my opinions are on the matter. DSA is not the Democratic Party. The DSA's goals are not to revitalize the Democratic Party. The DSA's goals are not to propagandize at the behest of the Democratic Party. There's many different caucuses, many different factions, many different ideological tendencies within the DSA. The national program is voted on democratically. However, the ultimate goal of the Democratic Socialists of America is to broadly move America through a process of reforms and maybe even a real political revolution in the long term to a socialist organization of the economy. So, of course, the national platform is always going to be a little bit more to the left, a little bit more radical than what the electoralist wing of the party is pushing for.
I'm sure you've seen the document. It was adopted just a few months ago. But some of the positions here: defund the Department of Defense, close overseas military bases,
I'm not DSA national.
Abolish the police and prison system, grant amnesty to all immigrants in the U.S., replace the Supreme Court and executive judiciary with a chosen by lower to Congress, abolish the Senate, public ownership of corporations.
By the way, there's some incredible bangers here. Abolish the Senate, banger. Public ownership of the largest corporations and essential industries. Oh, I'm nutting. As much as I have critiques of abolish the police or abolish the prisons, and it's not not the biggest issue of all time, especially considering that I think that is a far better moral goal to move in the direction of than the current situation that exists. I mean, dude, this stuff is so good. I mean, this stuff is incredible. I'm glad that it's being talked about. I wish that DSA electeds would be a little bit more, would lean into it a little bit more. I know Oliver would if he is elected for sure, but this should be our North Star for sure. This is a people-backed Project 2025. And instead of corporations and their stooges getting together in a cigar smoke-filled back room where they design American society and where the Republican Party should be headed in the direction of, this is a national program, a national platform that is dreaming of a better future. And it's important for, I think, the largest advocates of this program, this platform, like myself and even some electeds, to at least start getting people to be more open-minded about it, because there's elements in here that are unbelievably beneficial in the long run. What I'll say is this: I find it sad that we always have to stunt our imagination. We always have to kneecap ourselves, that we can't dream of a better future. Like, what is that dream? Because depending on the perspective or depending on the timeline, it was an impossible dream to hope for a free Palestine, for example. And now that dream is achievable, right? It's closer than ever before. It's good to have moral convictions. It's good to dream of a better future. You ask for as much as you can. You get back to the drawing board when your opposition tries to kneecap your movement. It is what it is.
And I think we're also going to be hearing a lot about Donald Trump's commitment to getting us into a reckless war in Iran, his collaboration with big companies to make sure that everything from groceries to rent stay sky high. And I think that people are...
This is the left position, which in my opinion is like super serious, right? This is the left position right now, is like, we want to move the economy in this direction. What is the right-wing position? Enes Kanter joining the WNBA to be like, is that transgender? Like, that's what they're doing. They're charlatans, man. They're charlatans. Do you understand how ridiculous it is that you actually do not have a real clear-cut agenda on the establishment Democratic side? So we're taking advantage of that, and we're trying to say, like, this is our goal. This is the vision for a better future for America. This is what we want to do. And the Republican Party's answer to that is, bro, transgender athletes. Remember transgender athletes? Remember that. Remember, get angry at the transgender athletes. And it's ridiculous. It's so deeply serious.
Another person who's been made an issue is Hassan Piker, who obviously endorsed Abdul al-Sayed in Michigan. You've been on his live stream, at least a few times. He's somebody who said, that America deserved 9/11. Now he backed off from that.
Yes, he's apologized.
But he said a lot of controversial things. Is he somebody that should have a role in the progressive movement going forward?
I think
what's really funny about this, by the way, because AOC has a really good answer for this, but before we even get here, what's really funny about this is like ABC asking this question to AOC when it's like the reality of the matter is, although AOC will defend me here, like even if she didn't, it's not like I go away. You know what I mean? Like, of course I have, whether people say yes or no to this question is utterly irrelevant to whether I currently have a place, whether this community currently has a place in this broad movement. They'll say like, oh, well, like AOC will defend me on this. And I think she delivers a really great answer to this question, right? But like ultimately ABC or CBS or the Beltway pundits and their attitude about this mass movement is utterly immaterial to where we are. Now, of course, the other side of the story is they can ask me personally, which they choose not to.
Are you going to run for president?
I mean, I'm focused on winning the midterms. I'm running for Congress right now.
She didn't say no. Oop. She didn't say no. I don't know how it bodes for her electoral prospects, but I love how much she just hates boomers as a political class. I mean, it's impossible not to feel that way. I mean, I'm sorry. I love my boomers in here too, but like, I mean, it's still class politics at the end of the day, because like it is the only generation that has benefited from a higher degree of socialization and like the beginnings of a social democratic system that was eroded, especially destroyed post Reagan, right? But like they have all of the wealth still. There are trillions of dollars of wealth currently captured in the hands of these 65 plus year olds, and they're holding on to that. They got the death grip on it. They got the goddamn death grip on it. Trillions of dollars of assets, of wealth, basically waiting to go to a bunch of horrible industries that are being designed specifically to cater to these boomers, to these Gen Xers, in palliative care, in old folks' homes. These are some of the most like corrupt institutions out there too, and they're just going to milk the trillions of dollars of wealth that's captured in the hands of some very, very old folks.
It was interesting to see you kind of open up in on an Instagram Live, I believe it was. So tell me what it was and why you decided to do it.
I think it's important for us to normalize these conversations, especially in this political environment. The Trump administration has...
Remind us what the announcement was.
Yeah, sure. So I have decided to start the process of freezing my eggs.
Yeah.
And in this political environment where this administration is denying reproductive care to women across the country, from abortion rights to the ability to carry out a healthy pregnancy, I think it's important for us as leaders to have these conversations and share these processes, especially for working women across the country, and normalize them.
Okay, all right. Congresswoman.
That was cool too. And I know people are gonna be freaks about this, but yeah, that was very cool of her to talk about.